So this is going to be video 9, and in the next following videos, we are going to get back into specifically my case and what happened to me and my children, everything that was done wrong. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty details of everything that went down. In this video, there's something very important that I want to talk about, and it's something called attachment theory. Attachment theory is something that's very well established and documented, very well researched on the clinical side of psychology. Attachment theory was created, established by John Bowlby and a woman named Mary Salter Ainsworth in the 1930s. Okay, so this is 100 years of research, 100 years of medical doctors, medical opinion, clinical research on what can happen to your child if you take away their mother. When it was created, it was focused more on the maternal side, but now in 2024, we're realizing that this can go with either parent, okay? You don't just need your mother. You need your mom and your dad to have a healthy sense of stability and have a very grounded way of thinking in adulthood. So in order to explain this a little bit better, we're going to watch a part of a video from a clinical psychologist who can explain everything much better than I can. And the way he does it is, this is actually a review of Britney Spears' book. It's so interesting, the psychological parallels between what happened to me and what happened to her. And for those of you who don't know Britney's story, I absolutely encourage you to do your research, because I think we can call that conservatorship exactly what the fuck it was now. She was trafficked. Britney Spears was trafficked. She did not have a choice. All of her devices were mirrored. She could not ask for help. There was no outlet for someone who has all this money, so powerful in the public, and they took everything from her. And I feel like it really drives my point home that this maternal trauma can happen to anyone. The most powerful and richest of all the pop stars, down to a washed up life coach who's in Virginia Beach. You know what I mean? Like, nobody is safe. Your kids aren't safe. I'm sorry. So we don't have to watch the whole video. I will link the video though below in the comments to give credit to this individual. He seems very intelligent, very well versed on his career, and I love it. And one of the reasons that I wanted him to explain it with context rather than myself is because my name has been dragged through the mud for years now. My reputation, everything about me, everything having to do with me, these people have completely tarnished everything that I've worked for and everything that's who I am. So and this is going to sound crazy, but from the outside looking in, I understand. If I step back from what happened to me just as an observer and look at what people know, look at what they've been told, look at the lies that have been run with, I understand why my credibility has been tainted. I understand that. The unfortunate truth is that none of it is true. Nothing that has been said about me really reflects anything about my person, my personality, my mothering. It doesn't even reflect my children. My children have been brainwashed for years now. They have been shown a lie. They have been told lies over and over and over again. They are working with faulty intel. And my babies are amazing. And they're smart. And they're people pleasers. And we're going to get into that a little bit more. But right now, I have this pulled up. So let's just go through it. Let's just listen to what he has to say. I feel like If you're hearing it from a doctor, maybe it'll give a little more credence than to if it's coming from me. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. So, here we go.
Because I look at it kind of on two different levels. From the one hand, I view it like a fan. I grew up with Britney.
Talking about her book, her memoirs.
I want the
what
best
happened
for
to
Britney.
her.
And this memoir did an incredible job of helping me understand from her perspective the trauma and the that she's been through. And it's wonderful to track her and then see her find success, find herself at the end of the story. The other way I look at it is through the lens of a psychologist. Britney gives really good detail into her life, and you can't help but look at that and draw connections between the experiences that she had and how she showed up behaviorally throughout the years. And I'm worried that as I am describing that people will perceive that I'm being negative or judgmental, which is not my intention. My intention is simply to draw the connections because this is a psychology channel and I want to help the audience kind of understand how this might happen, how she might be showing up. I'm going to do my best to describe her in a way that makes it clear that I am in her corner, I am a fan of her, I want the best of her. I'm not trying to use this as an opportunity to dissect or scrutinize her negatively. And you'll have to judge if I do that well or not. Now, from the lens of a fan, I thought this was maybe the best memoir I've ever read. I've read a lot of these, and typically the author is, trying to tell their story, and they're trying to inflate their image. They're trying to present themselves in a very positive light. I thought Britney was incredibly transparent, incredibly vulnerable. There was no effort on her part to exaggerate the quality of her thinking. There was no effort on her part to inflate her behaviors or improve her behaviors. I don't think she was trying to make a good impression for the audience. I think she was just telling the story as she saw it. No name dropping, no bloviating. I thought it was fantastic. And man, did she do a good job of describing the horrific experiences she had as a child and also as a young woman, in the spotlight. I thought her description of all of the, over the years I've tracked Britney, and you see her, for example, hitting the paparazzi's car with an umbrella, and you think she's lost her mind. How could she do that? Right? And then in this book, you get a really good description of the pain she was in after not being able to have access to her children. And then you think about the monsters that were the paparazzi that put her in that position. And you think of the way the media has treated her, the way that her father was treating her. I mean, I had no idea the extent of the abuse that she suffered at the hands of the media and her father and her family at large. I mean, it was just an incredible story. I feel like everybody failed her, except for maybe her fans. The media definitely failed her. The mental health professionals failed her, I think. The legal system failed her. I mean, I think that anybody would be so corrupted by that experience, I don't know how they could see straight at the end of it. And yet, right now, I think she's presenting, I don't know what she feels now, but she is presenting like she's in a good place, and she is looking forward to exploring who she is without the burden of this conservatorship, and her family. So for that purpose, I thought it was a wonderful book. Now, from a more clinical lens, I can't help but sort of identify events in her life that I think influence events and dynamics that influence how she shows up. And I think the first one that we have to talk about is her family. The description of her family is, it's without a doubt an abusive environment. It's a chaotic environment. Her mother's love is inconsistent. Her father is a drunk. The people around her are not stable. And I think that anybody, you don't have to be a psychologist to look at that and go, well, that's maybe why she became a star, right? She needed to get the love of the people around her, and so she presented in a way that was entertaining, and she got affection through her singing talent and her dancing or whatever. And I think that that's true. But I think there's more than that. There's a concept in psychology called attachment theory.
Here we go.
It's not that simple. There are a lot of different attachment theories, but the idea in general is that when you grow up as a child, it is important that you feel consistent and stable affection from your parents. And if you don't feel that kind of consistent and stable affection, you sort of, the ground that you walk on emotionally becomes less predictable. And some people respond to that by becoming really resistant and not trusting anybody. Some people respond to that by hating themselves. Some people respond to that by becoming super clingy and attached to their caregiver, and other people are like their caregivers, right? It creates this insecure attachment or distorted attachment in different ways. If you look at
We're going to stop right there. The idea behind attachment theory is, and you heard him say it, consistent and stable affection and proximity to your parents. When we are children, our parents are our world. Even if they're bad people, even, a child doesn't see that. A child sees their mom, they see their dad. And during childhood is when we build that foundation of what we're going to walk on emotionally the rest of our lives during childhood. Our worldviews are cultivated during childhood. We need that security as children to be able to walk tall into adulthood, okay? My children, Mona especially, has been not only shown but told time and time again that I have abandoned her. And that is not true. That is not even close to true. There is not a moment, not a second that goes by when my children aren't on my mind, when I'm not thinking about how can I get to my babies. This is not good. I have evidence right now, current real-time evidence, that they are not doing well. And that is not evidence I will disclose at this juncture. Moms are important. Then nobody should ever have to say that, because it should be common sense. Common sense, okay? But it isn't. And when we talk about attachment theory, you would think, 100 years of research, that any CPS worker, Jonathan Brown, would have this education under their belt. I learned about attachment theory in psychology in high school psychology. So anyone who's a guardian ad litem, Teresa Berry, Jenna Nannerman, anyone who works for CPS, Jonathan Brown, anyone who's representing someone fighting for their kids, Leilani Adams, should have this information. This should be a part of your education because it is well established. You should have known this. So either all of you are either working with inadequate education or inadequate integrity, which you should not be in your jobs. We will continue.
The Britney Spears story, her parents, just the way they function, are very inconsistent. And there are a lot of stories of people in her life that she cared about that fell away or got injured or damaged in some way. So, for example, she's connected to her grandmother, and then her...
Okay, so he's about to talk about her grandma and her brother. Her grandma passed away when she was younger, and her brother got in a real bad car accident. And the reason he's bringing this up is because he's giving examples of, as a young individual, she felt so attached to these people, and then all of a sudden they were gone. And that's what happened with Ramona. That's what happened with Deacon. I vividly remember every word from my last conversation with Ramona. And I can honestly say, honestly promise you, that had I known that would be the last time I would hear her voice for years, that conversation would have gone very differently. I had no idea. I did not know that they were setting up this whole elaborate plan. I was in the middle of a huge trauma. I didn't see it. I didn't want to accept it. That the people that I should have been able to rely on were the people causing this trauma. It's difficult to think about that conversation because I would have said so many different things. Let's continue.
Mom cuts ties. She's very connected to her brother. He gets in a horrific accident, almost dies, and she worries about losing the connection with him. She has a strong relationship with her mother at first, and she has some postpartum issues and gets very sick, and she gets scared about losing her mom. And so there's all these moments where Brittany has this strong bond, thinks she has a very strong bond that's never going to break, and then something happens and distance is created. And in response to that, Brittany becomes very attached or almost clingy. So the example that she gives in the book is, she's connected with her brother. Her brother gets in a really bad four-wheeling accident, and then Brittany spends the next couple of years sleeping in his bed. She's holding on to him because she doesn't want him to leave her. I think Brittany took that same sort of mind.
Thinking about my baby girl. She's 12 years old right now. I haven't gotten to hold her in my arms since she was 10. The hardest part is thinking about how lonely she must feel. She's around all these people who have been lying to her. The one person. When Mona was 3 months old, Josh was away. He was deployed to South America, and she did sleep in a bassinet for the first, or maybe it wasn't 3, maybe it was more like 2 months, 2 or 3 months. And she got cold, and I brought her into my bed because I wanted her to be close to her mama because she was sick. She's my baby. I wanted to comfort her. And she never really left. She always slept with me after that. Even when me and her dad stopped sleeping in the same bed and I would sleep on the couch, even if she fell asleep in her room, in the middle of the night, she would wander downstairs and come sleep with me. Like, when Josh left us, when she was 7, she slept in my bed every night after that with me. I did not have men in my bed. I did not date. That was not a thing. I was there for my daughter. She had already lost her dad. That she had no idea that he just disappeared. He told her on Thursday he was leaving. He left on Friday, and he never looked back. I could barely even get a hold of him. So she already lost that. You already did that to her, Josh. Why are you taking her mother now too? This doesn't make any sense. You're not a good parent. You're not a good person. You are setting our daughter up for future failure, for future emotional distress. You are brainwashing her. You are lying to her. You are manipulating her in ways that are going to take her decades to understand. This is not okay. You cannot do this to our little girl. We'll continue.
Set into all of her relationships throughout the rest of her life. I think that, I can't diagnose her, and this isn't even a diagnosis, but her attachment as described looks very anxious, meaning that Brittany sort of second guesses herself and how valuable she is, and overinflates, overestimates how perfect everybody else is. It leads to this style where she is quick to...
That's what you're doing. You're giving everyone else in our daughter's future this crazy power over her because she will be so afraid. You abandoned her, and then now you've convinced her that I abandoned her too, and I didn't. You are setting our daughter up for future emotional trauma. You are traumatizing her right now. Every little girl should be able to call her mom. And Mona's afraid. And I know that too because we'll get into later that she did text me. There was a period of time last summer when she was texting me. And those texts began to become a lot less frequent. There were times when she would not respond at all. And I know, as her mama, I know that was not what she wanted. I know that. You could tell yourself everything that you want. Jennifer, Josh, Chris, Lisa, whoever. You could tell yourself, but I know my child. And what's interesting is that first time she texted me, she did it from Josh's phone. And then she texted me again from her phone. And the messages were very different. She's not an idiot. She knows that you're watching her. She knows. My baby is so smart. And she has been sending me signals. And I hope she knows that I'm getting them. I see them. I see what you're doing, baby. And I'm coming, okay? This is not okay. This should have never happened to anybody. Certainly shouldn't have happened to you or your brother. Neither of you have ever done anything to deserve any of this. And I'm not done fighting for you. And I hope that you know that.
Believe, very gullible, will do what anybody else says because she sort of questions her own value. And if you listen to the book, I mean, it like sort of became clear to me that Britney didn't really recognize what a star she was. I mean, she knows it because she's winning awards. She knows that she has fans, but there's no ego tied to it, like will be typical of the standard pop star. But she views other people like they can do no wrong, which I think explains why in the relationship with Justin Timberlake, she puts up with him cheating and feels such shame for kissing some guy. I think it explains why when Justin said, I want to have an abortion, or I want you to get an abortion, despite the fact that Britney wanted to keep the baby, she couldn't stand up to him, right? He was able to dominate in that relationship. He could do whatever he wanted, and Britney sort of was stuck in this position of just putting up with it. And I think that if you, I mean, throughout the book, it was bothering me how quickly in every romantic relationship that Britney had, how enmeshed she quickly became with that man. And this is not a judgment on the number of relationships.
There are reasons that women become so engulfed in these abusive people. And it has to do with when you were little. I am very fortunate that I did have consistent and adequate proximity and affection from both of my parents when I was young. I did. And now I can walk on that solid ground because I am confident in myself. But when you take a child's parent, you are destroying that foundation. That's what you're doing to your own child. I understand that the public may not see the damage that's being done to my children right now. And I understand that it may not come to fruition, to light for many years, as they will need so much time to heal and process and cope with all the lies that have been told to them by everyone around them, aside from me. There's a reason that they won't let me talk to Mona. There's a reason that they have continued to perpetuate these lies about me to her. They know if I have access to her, I will explain everything. I will debunk all their lies and their entire game will fall apart. They are using my daughter's emotional climate as a pawn against me, something that's going to affect her the rest of her life. And this is not okay. We're going to get back to the Britney Spears situation. It's interesting that her conservatorship was like wrapping up right as all this was, because it really kind of came into my spotlight a little bit with the abuse on Britney and the abuse on her children that she could not control. Like it resonates with me. I want to talk about attachment theory. I wanted to talk about, there is a reason. This is so, for someone who doesn't, for people who don't have a background in psych, maybe you wouldn't have heard of this. But I promise you, this is something that has been researched by hundreds of very intelligent doctors, scientists, clinicians, etc. I want to talk about this right now because so many people aren't getting it. They're like, your kids are fine. They have clothes. They have a roof. Clothes and roof do not create a happy, safe childhood. Okay. That's not what you need. Emotional safety as a child so that you can carry that into adulthood. And that's what they're taking from my children. This isn't even about me anymore. It's about them and what they're doing to them. And I am their mother, and I will continue to stand up for them until the day I take my very last breath. So, thank you for watching. Please research attachment theory. Research it. See, learn for yourself. I want these videos to, generate questions within everyone so that you can learn and research yourself and see what's being done. I see it, but I also have a different kind of education than most, like my education is different than an electrician's education. There's a reason why I know these things. And just thank you for supporting me. This is so hard. Everything is hard. It's still hard. It will continue to be hard for quite some time. And I just appreciate everyone's support. We have a store now on Spreadshirt. It's called it's under Courthouse Kidnapping. There's a YouTube channel where you can find all of these videos in order. And I've started a GoFundMe for legal fees and medical bills. But I just want to thank everyone. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. I know that time is very valuable. Trust me, if anyone knows how valuable time is, it's me. And I appreciate everyone for giving up your precious time just to watch these. Like, you have no idea how much that fills my heart. Thank you for giving me a voice.